Arise, Queens. This is the All Queens Army, where women are provided with the tools you need to overcome your fears, face your flaws, and experience breakthroughs as you develop self-esteem so strong you emanate royalty. Now, for your host and commander of the All Queens Army, Breizy Time.
Welcome to the All Queens Army podcast. This is your girl, your host, Breizy Time. I am here today with another dope episode talking to one of the queens in the Queendom. So y'all, I hope that you guys are so ready for a wonderful, wonderful conversation. As you all know, we have been talking about some mental health. So we're going to be spilling a little tea today. So make sure you grab your queen mug. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes, because we are going to be talking about some very important topics in our community that we're not talking about enough. Okay, so you guys know this lady because she has been on the show before, and she decided to come back on the show today because we had a conversation just randomly yesterday. We met and we just happened to start talking about something, and we uncovered something that was new to me. This girl has been my friend for a long time and I ain't even know. So the fact that we even were talking about it and we uncovered about some mental health issues, we decided that we wanted to talk about it further on the podcast so that we could bring more awareness to things that are going on around us. So we want to welcome Pam to the show again, my baby.
Hello.
Hey, baby.
Hi, honey bunny.
Welcome, Pam, to the show. I'm so excited that you decided to come on, and
thank you.
You're welcome, boo. So today, Queens, we're going to be talking about depression, and we're talking about depression because I'll let Pam tell her story. In a conversation that she and I had yesterday was completely unrelated. It was just a conversation amongst friends over lunch. Pam shared that she's been going through some things, and we wanted to share that story with you guys and further talk about depression and how some people are living with and coping with it and how it impacts their everyday life and their relationships. So Pam, do you want to just bring us up to speed with what you shared with me yesterday?
Sure. So yesterday we were just talking about girlfriends and your relationship with your girlfriends. So we were having a conversation about someone else, and I disclosed to you that I've dealt with depression for many, many, many years, probably about 12 or 13 now, maybe longer than that.
How is it that I didn't know?
Because I'm really, really good at what I do. You learn to mask depression. You learn to mask you're not feeling well. You do what's routine. You get up, you take the kids to school, you be the mom that you're supposed to be. So you know between certain hours, you have to be this person. And then you know when they go to school, when you have your downtime or your whatever, you have these amount of hours to be in the bed, to do whatever that depression looks like for you. Typically have figured out a way to, by the time you get out the house, nobody knows how long and how difficult it was for you to get out of the house.
Right.
Or to get out of the bed. But once you've done that, you may have switched 5 outfits. You have done all of these things to be able to prepare to walk out of the door. So by the time that you get out the door, you're flawless. So nobody knows. Nobody's asking you what's wrong because you don't look like anything is wrong. Nobody was in the house with you to challenge whether something was wrong. And even if they are, you're just asleep. You can say you don't feel well. You can say you're tired. You have all these excuses as to why you're not functioning the way that you would ordinarily function. So you unintentionally start masking your life. So you go into these almost like roles. You have a role as a mother, you have a role as a wife, you have a role as a parent, you have a role as a, whatever your roles are in your life, an employee, employer, all of those things. You go into those roles and you navigate through life that way. And while you're doing all of this, you're losing yourself. You don't know that you're losing yourself. You don't even know that you've changed. As far as you're concerned, you're just doing what comes naturally because this is your new natural. This is your new normal. You either decide that you're going to acknowledge that this is happening to you and these changes are happening, or you don't. Someone else may bring it to your attention like, you seem like you're a little off, where things are different. You acknowledge that it's happening, or you don't. So for me, I knew what it was about. I knew that it was the death of my daughter. I knew that I went to a very dark place. I was in it for a long time. And then when I came out of it, I didn't see the changes that I'm sure that other people had saw. I thought that I kind of had pulled it together pretty well. You kind of go back into your normal routine, but it shows up in other ways. Right. So for me, you wouldn't know because by then you weren't coming to my house every day. You weren't there every day, gone. Yeah. So you weren't physically in my space every day. So, but if you you would have came in my room, you would have been like, wait, hold, what's wrong with you? Because it manifests itself in the way that I went from neat freak to just everything is everywhere. Oh, it's clothes over there, but they're folded. So in my mind, they're folded. So it was okay. No, they wasn't. But it was because it wasn't as chaotic as it may have been in somebody else's house. But for my life, it was chaotic. But I didn't equate that to this is what depression looks like for me. So it looks different for everybody. Mine is if I sleep during the day. If you know me, I don't sleep during the day. If I'm sleep all the time during the day, something's wrong. Unless I'm sick, something's wrong. But it's so much so that when you're aware of what's happening with you, even this week, like I was asleep like 3 days this week. And I actually had to question myself, like, wait, are you getting ready to go through a depression? Like, what's really going on? Is this because you don't feel well? Or is this because you're depressed? Is you're not feeling well a cold? Or are you not feeling well because of the situations that's happening that you're suppressing? So because you're suppressing, it doesn't mean that your body isn't dealing with it. It just deals with it in a different way. So it comes up as depression, which then goes into the whole sleeping and the whole, this is how you're changing. And unless you are privy to me telling you this is what I deal with, you just think I'm asleep. You don't know. I have completely shut down. I have a whole business to run, but I'm not going into the office. Well, why are you not going into the office? Because of avoidance. I don't want to go. So I'm going to come up with every excuse that I can come up with just not to go. Right. But you're going to accept it because you don't know me to do anything else. Your expectation is that I'm going to go to the offices and this is where I am. So if I don't go, you may not be like, well, that's off. Like you may be like, that's off, but I understand because you don't feel well.
Right.
No, I'm not going because I'm avoiding something. I'm not doing something in an effort to avoid something. So with depression, you avoid the interaction with other people. I don't feel like being nice. I don't feel like laughing. I don't feel like joking. I don't feel like acting like everything is okay.
So can I say two things that you mentioned just now that made me say, hey, I want to double back on that. The first thing is, and I hope you don't mind me saying it,
Sure.
and if you do, just say it and I'll edit it out.
Okay.
So I did notice, I'm going to say it was about 1.5 years ago, was the first time I questioned, were you okay? And you may remember, because I asked you. I came to your house because you was doing my hair, honey. You was laying me and slaying me. And you was actually putting a weave in. I sat down and I just asked you and I was like, are you okay? And I'm not going to say exactly what triggered me to say that, but we both know what happened. And I was just like, are you okay? Is everything okay? And you was like, yeah, girl. And you gave me an explanation. And honestly, I took the explanation and was just like, okay, I'm going to buy that. But you know how deep down inside you like, I have a feeling that something's going awry. But because when I confronted you, you blew it off like, no, I'm good. And you explained it away. I felt like, okay, well, I can't make her talk about something she doesn't want to talk about. One. And two, if my friend says she's okay, then for now, at least I have to take that for face value and believe you. So that was the first time I think that I at least second guessed, not necessarily that I knew something was wrong, but I second guessed, are you okay?
Right.
So I do remember that.
Was that the house when you said that it wasn't how it's supposed to, like it was, everything was everywhere?
Yeah.
So that's a clear sign for me with my friends, what I pay attention to because I'm aware of it. If you know somebody is a neat freak, if you know things are normally in order and they're not, and it's the closest things to them, their house, their room, their car.
Right.
Those are clear warning signs to me.
Yeah, that something's wrong.
And I don't care if we say it's everything's fine because subconsciously or consciously something is not okay. So for you to even pick up on that, to know, wait, something is really off, because even if her room, which I wouldn't be in, is off, the common area that people that you know are going to be in should still be right.
It should be right.
So once you've allowed that to no longer be what it used to be, it's out of hand by then.
So I want to say to the queen, so that you guys aren't confused, since Pam just gave me the okay to say what I noticed. When I met Pam had it all together. She was getting money. She was a businesswoman. She owned her own business. She did hair. She had the nice car, owned her own home. Like she was just that chick. She was that badass boss woman who had it all together. And what I feel like was that over the years, I do feel like I watched you go from being like super ambitious. You know what I mean? Like you were super ambitious to slowly not as ambitious. Not like you wasn't still taking care of business, but it wasn't at the same level. But that particular day, it was just a different feeling. Like that day when I came to your house, it was just stuff everywhere. And you actually cleared a space for me to sit down, but you was walking around like, pilling around the house and talking and moving like it was normal. And to me, I was just like, baby, are you okay? You know what I mean? Like I felt a feeling. I don't know what the feeling was, but I just felt like, what is going on with my friend? Because it wasn't normal. You know, like to me, knowing you, that wasn't normal. I mean, your house, you know, everything was always nice, well put together. And so for me to see it like that, and it's not like I hadn't been there within, I would say 6-7 months, I had. So it was just it was a complete change. And that's what made me say, are you okay? Because I was concerned. But I think maybe, you know, maybe I could have done a better job. Like, is there anything for the friends or the family of the person going through depression when they see things like that? Is there anything that they could do or say more than what I did? Because I think what I did was I offered to come and help you clean up. Let's schedule a day. And I think it was like that Saturday or something. And I was like, I'm going to come back and we're going to schedule the whole day and we're going to clean up. And you was like, okay, let's do it. I'm down. And then of course that day came and you gave me an excuse.
Absolutely.
You gave
Because
me an
I
excuse
don't
why
want,
you couldn't do it.
because I probably didn't want you to see this truth, right? So you were privy to that one room or wherever we were at that time.
We was just in the living room.
So first of all, I'm so particular about you can't come in my house and the living room is a mess. Like that doesn't, your common areas should always be clean. So if it had gotten to the living room, that means it had spilled over from some other room by then, right? So that means that you got to come in the house and you may have the possibility to walk around the house. So now I got to explain all of this away. So it's almost like you want the cleaning lady to come, but you got to clean up before the cleaning lady come. You know what I mean? Like I got to clean before she come. It was too much. And then in, I guess I don't want to say immaturity, but I'll say an inability to be transparent with my friend. We still want people to think we got it together. We still want people to think we are right, we good. So I may not have been at a place where I could articulate to you why things were the way they were, because I didn't understand. I didn't know. It wasn't like I didn't want to clean up. It was just, it's clothes everywhere. I'm gonna get them tomorrow. And then you got another load on top of it. And then, okay, now it's so out of hand. I don't even know where I'm gonna put all of this stuff. Who bought all this stuff? You go through all of these thoughts in your mind, right? And all of them prohibit you from starting it. So as I said before, because I'm going from one room to this room and this room, and I'm not focusing on this one, which is chaotic, just like your life at that time. So everything is chaotic. You don't allow anybody in to be able to maneuver through what you're going through, because you don't know how to, I don't know how to explain to you my mental status. So I certainly can't explain to you why I didn't put those clothes away, because that's simple. They're folded. Why you ain't just put them in a room and put them in a drawer? Like, why are they still there? That seems simplistic, but getting me to that movement and making that happen and completing that, although you feel amazing when you do it. And that seems very crazy for somebody that was a total neat freak and couldn't like go to sleep without vacuuming the floors. That sounds crazy, even coming from me, that an accomplishment is to fold the clothes, put them away where they belong, and clear that area. That sounds great. But when you're going through it, for somebody that has known you prior to, they're looking like, what in the world is wrong with you? So in terms of how does a person come to you and say, listen, this is what I'm noticing? It's a very gentle conversation. Let me be clear. It's a gentle conversation. It's a non-judgmental conversation. It can't be, girl, people been doing this all their life. Like, you're going to have to get over it. You're going to have to figure this out. You can't keep living. I don't need you to try to judge me based on, I've already been as critical with myself.
Isn't the critical part of you what also kind of overwhelms you? Like,
Absolutely.
Isn't that some of what paralyzes you and makes you not be able to do anything? Because
Absolutely.
You're already critiquing yourself and telling yourself that I should have folded these clothes. You're beating yourself up, in other words. So that in itself is handicap for me even doing the said task.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not, normally the task is not that major. It's just, you know how when your children, it's something on the floor and they walk past it and you're like, so how many times are you going to walk past that paper on the floor and you're not going to pick it up? So because my mind is wired the way it is now, because I think that when my daughter passed away, I know that that's when the depression happened. But when I go back in my life, I don't know if I was ever taught how to process anything. I don't know that we're ever taught when situations happen, you deal with them, you process. I think for me, this happened. You got a divorce on Tuesday. On Wednesday, you painted the house. You changed all of the curtains. You got all new furniture. You got rid of everything that belonged to him. And you moved on with your life. You weren't like, oh, okay, so let's talk about how you feel about this divorce. How is this going to impact your life? How is this going to impact your children's lives? What does this look like? Okay, so now when you go to the store, you need a babysitter. Now when you go to the store, he's not going to be there to go to the store with you or to go to the store for you. All of the changes that happen from a divorce to you lost your job, or to you switched your job, or to your children are in school now when they weren't in school. All of these changes that happen, who teaches you the processing? So if you've never learned how to process, it can manifest itself in a different way. So then once one big thing happens, all the things that's happened in your life wind up being encompassed in this one situation. So then you have the depression that sets in. So once you have experienced depression, I can assure you it's the worst thing to try to get out of. And then once you're out of it, you never want to be able to go back into it. But who teaches you how to navigate through that and how to get out of that, other than you just get up, you move forward? But when you move forward, did you deal with the situations that happen? Because we're used to not having a conversation with our girlfriend. I noticed that Bree don't seem the same, but I ain't say nothing. Or I said, was she okay? She said she was okay, so I took her word for it. But you really know something is going on. Now, should we, depending on the person, I guess we probably should maybe dig a little deeper, but be gentle with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, I want to be a advocate for you. I want to be positive in your life. You have to be non-judgmental, because if I at any point feel like you're judging me, I'm shutting down. I'm not going to talk to you about it because you don't understand anyway.
I think
Do you
that's
just
the
want to
hard
be nosy?
part. Yeah, like that's the hard part for maybe the friend or
Sure.
the spouse of someone who is going through depression. Because I know for me, looking into it, I do have a couple people that are around me who I would consider either close friends or even family members who struggle with depression, and then a few who struggle with bipolar disorder. And it's always this fine balance of say something, because you know I'm a direct person. I'm more of a person who come right to you and say, hey, I noticed this, or I don't like this, or this hurt my feelings. And I don't think that as a culture that we really, first of all, even do that well. We don't problem solve. We don't conflict resolution very well.
No.
We sweep things under the rug. We just don't confront things.
A lot of the problem is because we are taught not to tell anybody your business, and girl, don't tell nobody that you're depressed. No, I could be saving somebody's life.
Absolutely.
Because while you looking at me thinking, oh my gosh, she got it all together. I remember going to Security Mall the 2 weeks after Blake passed away. It was December. I had on a black fur coat, and Cameron had on a black fur coat, and we looked like we had it all together. And this girl was like, oh my God, y'all look amazing. And she was, compliments. I remember the door I went in, and I remember when I walked past her and I got about 5 steps past her, and I remember thinking, just keep it together until you can get past her. And I bust out crying because I had just lost my daughter. I had just buried my child. And all I could think was, you have no clue. I look like I have it all together.
Right.
You have no idea. It took me 2 hours just to get to the mall because I live 5 minutes from the mall, but I just couldn't get it together to get here. It looks amazing. But if you know a person, you know kind of some shifts. Like a lot of us lose even friendships because we didn't notice the sign that it was actually something wrong. We assumed that, they acting funny. They got a new boyfriend. They got a new car. It might not have anything to do with any of those things. It may just be something is really going on with them, and they don't feel comfortable enough to share that, because who wants to be labeled as crazy? Who wants to be labeled as, oh my God, girl, she suffered from depression, girl. You know how she is. But here's the thing. You also can't use an excuse that, she doing that because you know she depressed. No, sometimes that has nothing to do with depression. That's you. You're making decisions or doing what you're doing because that's what you choose to do. You can't put everything on depression. Everything can't fall into that line of this is what's happening. So it can't be an acceptable behavior because she's depressed. No, we need to fix it.
So you mentioned Blake's passing, and for those of you, Blake is Pam's daughter who she lost. So is that you're saying basically to the queens that was the trigger for your
I believe
depression?
so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
I was 34 weeks, high risk pregnancy. Terrible pregnancy. Essentially, I stopped feeling her moving, went to the hospital. It was already too late by then. So still had to go through delivery just like you would if you giving birth to a living child. And they call it stillborn. I say born still because she still was born for me. So the loss of that, it was traumatic for so many different reasons, because I didn't just lose my child. I lost all of my friends on the same day because nobody knew how to deal with Pam anymore, because I was the rock for everybody. So now the rock is no longer the rock, but there's no one else for me to reach out to. So none of my friends knew how to confront me or to deal with me, because I wasn't the bubbly person anymore. I wasn't the person you can laugh and joke and we can go out and hang out, and I was different. So I lost my daughter. I lost any dreams that I had for what this is going to look like. And let's be very transparent. I did not want to be pregnant. I was very, very angry that I was pregnant because I had a 10-month-old son, and now I'm pregnant with this other man. And although we just got married, we still got married under false pretense is because while I should have been in love with whoever you're marrying, I really married him because I was pregnant and I didn't want to be a statistic and all of these things I had made up in my mind. So I felt like I willed this loss because I didn't want to be pregnant anyway. So I've done all these things to fix it. So to fix it means I got married. To fix it means I put all these things in place. So this picture looks the way that I want it to look to the world, which is what I'm saying in terms of mask. Like I've learned to mask what the reality is. So in reality, I look like I had this amazing relationship. And for him, it was. But for me, it wasn't. He was an amazing person, but he wasn't what my provision was at that time. He was what was comfortable because I'm pregnant and I'm in this situation and I needed to fix it. When Blake passed away, now I've done all of this to fix it. And the reason I was doing it is gone. So what do you do with that? Because now you've lost the reason. You didn't have the right foundation. All your friends are gone. Your family definitely doesn't know how to deal with you. Everybody feels like I'm just going to give her time to grieve through that. So you gave me space.
But not support.
Support as you know it. Who knows how to support somebody that just lost a child?
Got you.
Nobody was equipped with that. When we got married, he married the Pam that he knew for 12 years prior. That Pam that showed up after my daughter.
I was going to say he married Pam before a traumatic loss.
Absolutely.
And Pam after the traumatic loss was a
totally different Pam. Even during my pregnancy, I was a very different Pam because I had a rough pregnancy. So he got the short end of the stick on every level because he didn't marry anybody remotely close to who he had fell in love with because the situations had changed and the tables had turned, but they were all turned to me. So in my mind, unfortunately, when you're the mother that has the loss, in your mind, it's a deeper loss for you. And it may not have been. I don't even know to this moment. Of course, I've had the conversations, but how would I know how my loss feels to him? He's the father. He lost too. The grandparents and everybody else that's attached to that. But the depression that sets in for the mother looks different. And how do you as a friend or anyone else, how do you foster that? How do you help a person through that if you've never experienced it? How do you help a person through that? You tiptoeing through every word that you say. If you call me like, hey girl, how you doing? You don't want to say that because suppose I'm having a bad day. Anything you say, so you don't call. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what to say. And that's what most people say. I don't know what to say. I didn't know how to handle it. Well, and you're not knowing how to handle me and just not calling, you allow me to go into this other place and unintentional. As I matured, I realized that we hold people responsible for things that you have not experienced, that you can't know how to handle me at that point. Like I was very delicate. So anything you could have said might have thrown me off. I wanted you to call. I wanted somebody to call. Get me out of this place. Help me get out of the bed. Help me do these things. But everybody was scared to do it. Everybody was scared to approach me because you needed me to be the me that I've always been for you. I didn't know how to do that at that time. So the depression probably was worse because they didn't know how to handle me. And I can't fault them. I probably did at the time. I know I did. Once you go through that type of loss, I had to own where I was wrong. I had to own some things that I did, some situations I created, and that sometimes your depression is from stuff you've done and you can't share with nobody else. You can't tell somebody else, well, you know what? Maybe I was part of this because maybe I created the situation because if I wouldn't have done this, and this, these things wouldn't happen. So if I didn't tell him get out, I wouldn't be single. So when did I own that I played a part in that? The only part that the world sees is that he left. But did you see the part that I was the one that gave the instruction so that when he did what I told him to do, and I didn't think about the ramifications of what that looked like, and that you're going to be single and you're going to have all these things because you assume they're going to come right back and everything's going to be okay and we're going to be beefing for 2 days. And when it doesn't work out like that in the way that you thought, because it was a simple argument, but now you're in a divorce court, then you're depressed about that because when you realize that you played a part, because we want to blame everybody else. Right. We want to, I didn't really do that much, but I think what depression has taught me is reach out to people, be honest, be transparent. When I went to go see a counselor one day, the reason I picked her is because she said, oh, you are really, really good. You mask really well. I was like, what? She was like, you have talked the whole time and you have talked about you do this, you handle this, you do that. You mask really, really well. She was like, it's not going to work. I respected her 1,000% because she called me out like, that was cute. For somebody that don't know what's going on, you can't do that with me. You got to own what you do. You have to take responsibility for what you're doing. You have to be accountable for the things that you choose. I need somebody to challenge me. I need somebody to be like, oh, wait, why are you doing that? Or no, it's not okay that you've been in the bed for 3 days. Now I gave you the first day. Now it's time to get out. And when you're in a depressive state, prayerfully there is someone that can motivate you to get out of that state. And we not going to be the easiest sometimes. Sometimes it's like, no, get out my face, out of my head. But I promise you, for most, I can probably say most of the time, we need that. Just the extra push. I was tired this morning and I'm like, nope, I made a commitment to Brie. I'm on my way. You know what I'm saying? I could have called them and like, so I got to be in that area later. I can come later. No, it would have been easy for me to stay in the bed. It can't be the option anymore. I knew you were going to hold me accountable. So I got up. So somebody has to be almost like, if you can figure out an accountability partner, then y'all got to make a commitment to that relationship that says, these are the flaws and the fallacies that's in my life. As my friend, I'm bringing this to the table. This is where I balance you. This is where you balance me. I might need you to call me and be like, look, did you complete this goal? Did you do what you were supposed to do? And not in a parenting way, but in a loving way where, because I want you to be successful. I don't want depression to take over your life. And it's easy to take over your life if you're not careful. So I guess I really wish we could figure out a way to teach processing. I don't know that.
When you say processing, what do you mean? What does processing mean to you?
So when I was growing up, if something happened with my mother, she was asleep. That's to this day, right now. I know that if something's up with my mother, she's asleep. Well, that's what happens with Pam. So if something's wrong with me, I'm asleep. Well, the translation is that's depression. So when do you have the conversation about what's going on, what's wrong, why this happened? When do you process the situations? We're taught to just move forward. This happens, you wake up the next day and move on. Well, when do you deal with what happened?
Well, I want to say something about that because I find that interesting that you say like your mom, that's how she dealt with things that were going on, was that she slept. And I also remember my last guest who was talking about depression. Of course, she said that sleeping a lot was one of the biggest signs that maybe there's something going on. Yep. And I said to her, I think that people go through stages of their lives where everything is kind of yucky. And is there a difference between, I'm just going through something right now. I'm not depressed, meaning mental illness, depressed. I'm just depressed because I'm going through a tough time. That depressed and the depression that you feel when it's
long term.
Yeah, those two things are different. And I was trying to get her to explain the differences in the two. And she did.
How you can see the difference?
Yeah, she did a really good job explaining that. So Queens, if you haven't listened to that episode, go back because Shanae, my gosh, she did a good job explaining that. So I want to say in regards to that, like with your mom and you seeing your mother deal with her issues that way, do you think that you picked up that same coping mechanism?
Subconsciously.
Because you watched your mom.
And watching how she dealt with things. Now, we as an adult handle things differently. But as a child, my mother wasn't very boisterous. She was very quiet. She was very laid back. She was very green, if you will. So she was taught more, wife is quiet, a wife is subtle, a wife is submissive when she was young. So she wasn't the person that she is now. So now, like, she coming out swinging with anything. However, that was not what I grew up with. That's not the person I grew up with. So I knew growing up, I wanted to be different. So I literally pulled my mother out of that. Like I was like, no, you need to say something. No, you need to do this. Like I was the one that was pushing her to fight back for everything. So now with my children, like my mother wasn't like, you know, what's wrong with you? You seem like something's off. We didn't have those kind of conversations as a child. Now, with my children, totally the opposite. What's wrong? What's going on? I don't like the way that you move. My children get in the car a certain way. I'm like, what happened? What's wrong? Something about the way you move, something about the way you look. I made it up in my mind. I wanted to be able to have a relationship with them where we talk about anything. I want you to be able to come to me. I don't want you to hold on to all of this stuff and you don't have any outlet. You don't have anybody to talk to. Nobody understands. Nobody can respect what you're saying. Whether I agree with it or I don't agree with it, it's still what you're going through at that time. When something happens, I'm not just like, oh, well, he don't want to be your friend. So what? He don't want to be your friend. You got other friends. No. Here's the deal. Everybody wants some acceptance in their life. I'm not going to tell my child, you shouldn't be mad because the person that has been your friend all this time is not your friend anymore. No, you have to go through the mourning process of that person not being your friend. Why are you not friends? Did you play a part? Is this something that can be fixed? You know, it's so often, just sweep it under the rug, girl. Y'all broke up, girl, please. People break up every day. The dog died, go buy another dog. Your child died, have another child. You know, like it's always to fix it, but not to deal with it. So I think once you teach a person, deal with it. And then then you can move forward with the other child, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So sometimes in an attempt to fix a problem, we move too fast. So the child passes, so you have another child. So you lose your car, so you go get another car. You don't fix the car, or something happens with your car. You don't fix it. You just go buy another car. Well, now you've incurred 5 years worth of debt instead of paying that car off that you only had a year. But you just, instead of fixing it, you can just go get another car. So you're not looking at the long term. You just want to fix the problem right now. Because I've made it my business to try to process through, this is what's happening. This is how it's making me feel. Is it okay to feel this way? And I want my friends and my family and my, I just want that to be a norm. I want us to be able to have a conversation about what makes you uncomfortable. I want you to be able to say, okay, listen, you're crying because of this. Okay, this is for this moment, and this is how it's going to impact you. Let's figure out how we can navigate through that, as opposed to, what are you crying for? It's not even that serious.
Right.
It is that serious for that person, and that's why they're crying.
The last episode that you and I recorded, I said, remember when I told you during that episode that the best advice I ever got from my dad was to deal with the pain?
Yep.
Remember I said that we were talking about the hardest thing that I'd experienced at that point in my life, right? Because clearly since I've had harder things, but at that point, that was the most difficult experience that I've had to figure out how to get over. And the advice that my dad gave me, and thank God, at a young age, I was 22, he said, take the blows, feel the pain. Don't rush and move on. Don't, just sit, live in the reality of what this situation is that you're going through.
Right.
And it's now that we're having this conversation, in hindsight, I'm thinking about that advice. And it's funny that he gave me that advice with the first, I would say, traumatic experience I had, because I think that I kept that pattern of behavior. Every time I experienced something in my life, I lived in it. I lived in the pain of whatever that thing was, meaning I kind of did the opposite of what you're saying, where I tried to patch it and put something else in its place.
Because you were taught that.
I was taught that.
But who's taught it?
But that's the point I'm trying to make is, luckily, I had a parent who said, live in this.
Right.
Feel it, deal with it. If you wake up today and you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. Live in that moment. Don't try to run from it. Live in it and cry if you need to cry. And write in a journal about how you feel and tell the person, hey, this is how this feels for me.
Right.
And live in it. Because once you live in it and you understand the feelings and the emotions that traumatic experience has caused you, you understand yourself so much more. You give yourself permission to feel the pain. You give yourself permission to feel sad. You give yourself permission to not be perfect. You give yourself permission to be weak. You know what I'm saying? And
which is an amazing gift.
It is, because
it's an amazing
especially
gift.
As women, we're not given permission to be weak. We're not given the pass that some women of all other cultures, they're given a pass, and Black women aren't given a pass. And the sad thing is, not only are we not given a pass by society, we don't give each other a pass.
At all.
We don't give. I just made a post the other day that said, ladies, it's time for us to start forgiving each other and stop being so hard on each other. And I know we hold each other to a higher standard, and that's okay, right? Because we expect each other to succeed and we expect each other to soar. And so that's okay. But at the same time, we have to have margin for error. We have to have margin for days when you're tired. You have to have some margin for days when people don't feel up to being superwoman, being single mom, being wife, being girlfriend, being the answer to all the problems, being the savior to the parent, being the best sister, being the best niece, being the best daughter-in-law, being the best employee, being the best employer. There's so many titles and so many hats that we wear. We give so much. And then we always put ourselves last. And on top of all of that, we don't give ourselves permission to feel the pain of that and to feel the anxiety of that, or to feel the overwhelmingness of that, because we're told that we shouldn't even have those feelings because
people
this
been doing this all
is
their
normal.
life.
Yeah, this is normal, honey.
You had a baby
This is-
and you worried that you had a baby.
This
So
is
okay,
normal.
they crying all night. This is your whole life just changed.
Yes.
So my grandmother had 6 children and she wasn't complaining. You don't know what she was doing. number one.
Right.
And number two, your grandmother's experience and mine is two different experiences. And allow me to have that. Allow me to have the anxiety. Allow me to have whatever is happening for me because that's my truth. But because we're taught not to live in your truth because it may not be comfortable for everybody else. And everybody else has put you on this pedestal that you're not supposed to fall off of. You guys stay on the pedestal. Like, listen, check this out. I didn't ask to be on the pedestal.
But that's because, in my opinion, we're too worried about what people think. We're too worried about people's perception of us. And it's funny, I had a conversation with my sister about that very thing yesterday, caring so much what other people think about them. I used to. A lot. Like I used to really care. I think I used to wear so many masks to mask the pain that I was going through. Now, I did live in it because remember, I was taught to live in whatever was going on. But just because I was living in it and I was accepting it and I was going through it and I was working through it and I was very aware and cognizant of what I was going through, I still wouldn't, no one else would know, right? Because I still played the role of you walk out the door and you got it together and no one knows exactly what I'm going through. So much so, you know this, I feel like the periods of time that I can identify where I was depressed, I don't go through depression the way that I think you and some other people experience it. Like I haven't been diagnosed with any chronic depression, but I do still think that people go through periods of their life where they are depressed. Right. And I like to make that distinction because we don't want everybody to think just because they're going through something that means they're dealing with. Depressed.
You may not be dealing with depression. You may be having a bout of a depressed moment within your life. You lost something, someone.
I just wonder how we have gotten ourselves to a point where people feel so uncomfortable with expressing and living in what they go through. I just wonder when that happened because I'm going to be 100% honest. It's just something that I never really experienced or understood until I started realizing that some people very close to me were going through depression. And that's when I started looking at it from a different perspective and really started to become interested in you guys' experience. Because from my vantage point, I can't wrap my head around why it would ever be unacceptable for someone to express what they've been through, or why it would ever be acceptable for someone to be told to kind of get out your funk, get it together. While I understand the message, what it does to a person's psyche, that part I find so hard to understand. You know, I find hard to grasp because, of course, it's not my experience. So when it's not your experience, it's like you can barely even see how it could happen to someone else while you know it's happening. It's so hard for me to just see. And outside looking in, I want to say so badly like, oh, baby, it's totally okay for you to feel insecure about yourself, or it's totally okay for you to feel sad about what you went through, or it's totally okay for you to feel like you don't want to go to work or you don't want to talk to people for a month because you experienced a loss. Like, that's okay. Why is it that society or parents or friends or whomever are telling people that they have to do things a certain way? Why is it that everyone wants to not have to deal with people's trauma and people's pain? Like, is it making you uncomfortable?
You have to be strong.
Like, why
like
is it
you're
that
supposed to be strong?
Yeah, but why? Why are we making people feel like they can't be in a place of just not being strong all the time? Why is that a problem? Like, is it bothering someone else that you can't be strong for a certain period of time? I mean, are people that selfish?
It might be.
That,
if I'm your rock, right? And you come to me and you're used to coming to me for everything and I'm the rock, right? But I'm going through something right now. That means I can't be available for you unless I make myself available. So I can either decide that I'm going to turn on the rock and I'm going to be the rock that you need me to be. Or suppose you call me on this one day and I just can't get it together. So almost in a selfish, unintentional way, I'm not supposed to have a bad day. I'm not supposed to be that's weak.
I hear what you're saying. I just have a major problem with that.
It's not right.
Yeah, that
be
says
clear.
that we're making people suffer. We're teaching people, and more importantly, we're teaching the generation coming up behind us that it is not okay to go through what they're going through.
Right.
And that's why I found so much interest in this topic, because you look at your kids and you look at the kids around you, your friends' kids, the kids in your family, and you're like, oh my gosh, you guys are doomed. If we don't really start talking about this and fix this and really make people understand that it is okay. It is absolutely 100% okay for you to feel how you feel, and nobody is allowed to tell you that you can't feel these feelings and that you can't talk about them and that you can't live in them and stew in them. Sometimes you need to sit in it and you need to tolerate it. You need to be able to look into, why do I feel like this? You need to take some accountability for why you feel the way you feel, and the fact that you made decisions that caused you to be there. That's okay. You don't have to always be perfect. You can't even learn and evolve that way. So a lot of the traumas that we experience, and I guess I'll speak for myself and not speak for everyone, but a lot of the traumas that I've experienced are a direct reflection of decisions that I've made. So it's not like life just decided to wake up today and kick me in the ass.
And that's why you accept it, because you feel like you put yourself in the situation.
Yeah,
so
I feel like
you
I
stay
can
in the
look
marriage
back.
because I got married. I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just go ahead and deal with it because this is what I decided.
No, I don't think that way.
Well, for that particular situation, I definitely felt like I stayed because I put myself in that situation. You knew what you was doing. You knew you weren't, the foundation wasn't there, and you still did it. So now you in it. So
Yes,
now I
that's
eventually
so
I came
interesting.
out of it. But remember,
Right.
I was also in a different state of mind.
Right.
I just lost my child. So I wasn't probably the Pam that I may have ordinarily been to be like, oh, I'm not doing this. At that point, it was what was comfortable. You know what I mean? It was like, he has Cam, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was, the other things were fitting. They were working. So I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of my peace and a little bit of my comfortability because this part is working. And again, you did this. Nobody did this to you. So imagine the strength that we have to exude as women. I can't imagine being a man and you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to have any emotions. You're not supposed to say anything, because who you going to tell that you have any emotions? I can't imagine the difference in the responsibility to have it all together all the time as a man, because as women, we're moving pieces all the time. So at least a lot of us stay busy so that we don't have to think about some things and we don't have to deal with some things. But men, most of the time, they're more laid back. They don't have as many things to do as we do. So if they have to be strong, who do they tell that they depressed? Because there's so many men that commit suicide, and you're like, wait, he was fine. I just talked to him. He's always been in a good mood. No, he wasn't. You couldn't see it because he has been taught. If you think we were taught to move past it, they're not even taught to have emotions. At least as a girl, we can cry.
I don't
when
think
we
it's
little.
harder for men. I think it's just different. I don't think it's harder though.
I think because we are expected to be emotional. We're expected to cry. We're expected to yell, fuss, scream, and express. Right, wrong, or indifferent. We're allowed.
I don't think we are though. I challenge that.
I think, okay, if a little boy is crying, it's always, you're a boy, you ain't supposed to cry. If a girl crying, you expected to cry. You know what I mean? So
But
it's
I
almost
think
like
that-
you telling
I
him to
think that
suppress
once-
his feelings.
Once we get though to being women, if women express certain things, then they're crazy.
Oh, definitely.
You know,
I
if
agree.
women are going through, like with you, going through a depressed period or whatever, and let's say things start kind of slowly falling apart in your life, then it's, girl, get yourself together, or you got to deal with it, or make sure you do what you got to do to take care of your kids. So I think that while as young kids, it's more tolerated that we're emotional.
Sure.
I think by the time you get to an adult as a woman, it's not, because then we get labeled with all of these negative labels for expressing how we feel,
Right.
you know, and that part I don't think is much different than men. It's just done differently, but I think it's the same thing where men aren't allowed to express themselves. Well, hell, men are more expressive now than they've ever been, honey.
You never lied.
So to me, I feel like it's like slowly the tables are turning where it's expected for women to be the rock and for women to be stronger. And it's also being massaged into our culture that we need to start letting men be more feminine or open up to their emotions. But then at the same time, that same coin is turning where it's like women should stop, men should do more. Women should stop, men should do more. So I don't think it's harder per se. I think it's the same, but it's just different pieces because men are different than women. Like, they're just different. And so I think that they suffer the same that we suffer in not being able to express.
But women are expressive, so we're going to have a conversation. We most of the time
But
are
are
going
we?
to talk to somebody. Even if you like, girl, oh my God, he get on my nerves so bad. Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? Like, it could be about something that is regular that we would normally talk about. But men, they not going to say, when she did this, this, and this, she hurt my feelings and she made me feel like this. But they're not going to talk about the emotional part of it and how it made them feel. They're not going to talk about, this made me react like this. We may be more inclined to have that conversation, but I don't think they give themselves that window and that permission to say, she broke my heart. You know what I'm saying? No, y'all just go get a whole nother girlfriend or a whole 5 girlfriends or 5 whatevers.
See, that's
to
what
fix
I
and
always
repair.
I always try to steer away from that conversation, because like talking about how men feel, because we're not men.
And you're
so,
right.
You know what I mean?
You're
so
right.
we can really
I guess I'm speaking from talking to men and having that conversation, specifically saying, why don't y'all express yourselves? Why? And they're like, the ones that I have spoken to in my experience have always said, we're not even taught or allowed to as a child to be emotional.
Yeah, I usually don't, because the Queen's Army, honey, we here to help the queens.
Absolutely.
The kings got to get their own army.
Okay.
Now. I mean,
all
we
right.
love,
Respect.
Listen, we love the
y'all
queens.
kings,
I mean,
but,
we love the kings, honey. But if I were a man, or if I was talking to a man, then I would say, hey, tell us about this. But to me, we can speak to queens because we know us,
right.
We understand
That's
us.
fair.
And so for kings, it's like, y'all gotta get your own help.
Yeah,
no, I'm just joking.
Get your own part.
Look, y'all need to get your
own show.
Y'all need to get the all kings army, honey. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap. This was a great conversation. We may have a part 2. We be having a lot of part 2s, honey. But we may have a part 2 to talk about this topic some more. We want to say thank you so much to Pam and coming to the show. And thank you so much. I love you dearly.
I love you too.
So thank you guys. I will talk to you all soon. Make sure that you connect with the All Queens Army podcast and meet your girl Breizy Time on Instagram. I am at All Queens Army. You can also connect with me on Facebook and YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, as well as Google Play. Make sure you go out there and please review the podcast. Let me know your thoughts. Give me some feedback. You can reach out to me at Breizy at allqueensarmy.com, and that is BREICY at allqueensarmy.com. I love you, queens. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the All Queens Army podcast. If you want to connect with Breizy Time and the All Queens Army, be sure to follow them on IG and Facebook at All Queens Army. Or head over and check out the All Queens Army YouTube channel. Until next time.